The waiting on signal, high settings. Pre-flight check set locations, high setting locations, sun lines. Open and track interference. The position location was on too many line signals. Put it back in track locations. Waiting on hour line rotation interference. 2 track location settings. Open all track settings and interference and position location direct location settings. Okay, setting signals and high center location of the sun is understand the track lines. How to set position location directions is retracking location settings. Okay, so we're on signal location. Waiting for everybody to come in line rotation. Okay, it's on 1 minute second line setting. All central calculation setting. So what I'm going to do is before we get into school location setting, I'm going to set it up 10 minutes before we go live setting. So it's in too many line signals, too many rotation surface, and it's in a stretching communications surface. Setting signals location of the sun is understanding the recognition location of time setting. It comes in all formation locations when you come to higher positions of your sun lines. Your track location is extremely important when it comes into time sector. Time sector is a line setting location in the sun, how it comes into its own relation. It stands on point of view. Same with the moon operation locations. You have to recognize the location settings when it comes into high formation lines. Truly understand that the sun is a schematic line setting. Now, that rotation has its own graph line rotation. It sets communication settings. So it's kind of like walking into a building and seeing everything around and all coordinate settings, different rooms, different sectors, different quadrants, different unified setting rotations, different compartments, space command settings, different computer locations, right? It's all generation set locations, but you have to understand that your sun is waiting on signal. You get into calculation streamlines. Let's say you get into sun codes, set lines, division lines, rotation surface, high specification calculation, high setting. I want to make sure that, okay, so good. So Hendelson, good. The modification, Jill's the modification. Making sure that everybody's in pre-flight, set line settings. Really focus on your calculation settings, guys, when you get into motivation cycles, set line divisions, hangers, calculation streamlines, set line position. Right? So in that communication cycle, set location of sun lines, we're going to go from 82 to 90. Now, this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun today because your position line direction location is second day line setting equal line conditions of 7 equal line conditions over 1 position of 3 zeros and calculations of bracket surface. All right, 2 line settings into equal line 7 position locations of box locations. All right, you box the 7 line conditions back goes into 2 line centers and position locations. You circle the position of the 2 set communications and cross signals into flux capacitor and communication setting and rotation setting rotation. Setting calculation high stream interference comes into all position locations and set locations. Ground line center, high line rotations in position locations to all calculations to its position line setting in bracket surface position location to ground setting. Okay. Setting calculations streamlines is truly saying how to set up security line position location in your suns. The ground line centers is 36 line positions, which is a field communication, right? 36 equals fields. Field line position across. Cross line centers of X, line position of T line position location of box, in position location equal line condition of triangulation setting into a triangle location. Now, setting position location direct locations, like I said, pre-flight set locations is very important. Check this, check that, check that, this, that. So in position location directions, every time I go on YouTube on SPACETIMECREATER, make sure you understand the title of the fence. Today is position locations of time sectors of pi. Okay, pre-flight check, done. Now you're ready to go. Okay, correlation, information cycles, communicating with each other. No. Concentrate on you first, right? When you're in the sky lines and sky grid line centers, then you can get correlate, but you do it through the mind setting. Voice and grids is extremely important because it affects everything that you do through tether. A tether electrical line setting locations. They got one line setting, one line setting, one line setting, one line setting, one line setting. All right. So in calculations, you got to be into a triangulation position line direction to communication to each other, right? Center calculations into 7, set line position location of 6, 6 position location of 3, position of 12, and position location of 9. Okay, 12 central line position location line settings. 12 plus 12 is 24 line setting rotations. XD 1000 line position location of 7. 7 surplus line position travels line position out of the equation line setting. Setting communication line setting. 3 is offline position location calculations. Has to be set locations back in 3 line setting instead of locations. All right. 9 has to be in the center of set location, high interference on pre-flight communication settings. Setting communication line settings. 9 equal line conditions of 12. 12 line position location 24. 24 comes into 48. 72 track lines into all line conditions, 144 crystal grid activation setting. All right, so it's important you understand when you're traveling, you're going through the mind adaptations. It's the alteration locations and ground setting. Okay, you got 3 ground setting, 4 ground setting, 5 ground setting, 6 ground setting, 7. You're always dealing with 7 every single day because it's you from head to toe. So anything above is what? The atmosphere, right? So you get 7 lines in position line directions going up, right? So you got the zero gravity, you got the ground setting, okay, and position locations. You got your security position line settings. There's a box location, a security line position electrical line setting, okay, grounds. The operation set locations in the grounds location is security line setting. Then you come into all levels, your Fibonacci swirl line rotation. Set communication setting is what? Position locations, solar generation light setting in position locations. Then you come into all calculations to what? In locations 2, coming into time locks, timeline interference to your heart registration timeline. And set locations to come into high center interference line direct locations to your throat box set locations, radiograph location screen settings. And then you come into 7 rotations into your T reception line of communications into your antennas and your theta box locations in telewaving communication setting. It's all set up. You're dealing with this every single day. 7, only 7, not 12. Sensor communication is all levels of pre-flight. So you're pre-flighting what? All levels of zero gravity is 7. Stay within 7 and the equal line conditions of 12. Now you got line position locations, equal line centers, and position line centers, and force line centers of 5. 5 equals 12 location. Right? So 7 plus 5, position location, triangulation of 12, right? So understanding calculation, setting location is all levels on how you see yourself location of the sun. So we set location of graph lines. It says position location during setting. So all in position location direction. All right, so setting communication. All right, so it's going to go through line setting. It's going to be a very fast location. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 line centers. So that's equal location of 7, right? So all you're doing is you're using metric settings into digital frame line condition of zeros. Graph streamline centers, you have a graph. Pounds calculation setting, right? Zero gravity, grounds, and your security right there. See? 0, grounds, security, right? Balance. Balance of 3 line setting line interference. 3 track locations into your 7-digit number. Comes into 4 line setting rotations into locations into north, west, east, and south. Setting calculation to diamond core line setting. Now you can travel through pre-flight set locations. Once you stand position location line settings, it all calculates and modifies how you see locations. If your videograph line setting in position location goes like this, you're not in position location of balance. Okay, so you get a track line center locations, 0 gravity interference, which is good. Grounds are pretty good, set locations, but the security is way too high line, right? You got a position that's back in ground setting. It has to be at a certain level. Levitation ground line center location has to be at a certain communication system. It's kind of line center location RPMs, right? When you're driving a standard, right? That's all it is. That's all it is. You're ramping your communication system to a videograph steering line setting and staying in the sequence location of number patterns. All through 0 locations, sets line position locations of 7. All right. So that's important. You have to understand. This comes in all communications sun. The sun communicates to all levels of you through number, sequence, location of patterns into where you are. Now you guys are in track location of 82, but what you got to come into is 90 settings. All right. Setting calculations, high interference, sets position locations into 5. 5 line center locations over across line centers, 5 connection, equal line conditions to 7, 7 line condition location line interference location of 12. All right, so that's the important you have to understand when you're traveling, right? Because you're connected to all levels. Every time you use, you're setting out signals, and those signals are setting up zeros, ones, twos, threes, fours, all the way up to 12, right? So you got a video graph screen. That's this location line setting, right? So you always start with 0, always start with the grounds, and you always start with the security, right? So set position location line center is 0, in position locations into 0, in communication of 0. Now, this is position location of 2. This is position location of 0, this position is 0, 0, and this position location is 1. All right, so it's your voice line, it's your emotional line, it's your track line, it's your communication cycle line. So your video graph stream sets line position location on a line setting. I want you guys to understand your communication system is all over the solar line settings that comes into cross line connection, position locations, all line center, rotation interference, in position of pi, and calculations into 4 sectors and calculation streamlines. All right. So this is a calculation of the brainwave and pattern and calculation streamlines, alpha, delta, theta, beta, and omega. But now you come into gamma. Okay. So once you understand the radiation cycles and high center location nitro settings, then you get into higher rate rotation interference. So I'm going to set the sun graph location. It's all line setting. Compartment settings, compartment interference, compartment line triangles, locations. So it's a graph line stream, set line rotations. All right. Sun rotation setting has to recognize your position location direction line setting and high rotations. Communication cycles, high generation light streams, high line rotations, position location calculations. Setting communication settings. All right. Set calculation. This is your sun graph line setting. All right, so coming out of portal communication, there you guys are. Setting calculations, team line setting. 6th dimensional line center, operations, high center interference, looking in, position line direction, 7th dimension, 8th dimension, 9th dimension, set locations, calculations, 10 line center, 11 line rotations. Trial position, center calculations, 30 minutes on the clock, have fun. Sun graph streams, set locations, you guys are here, trial position locations to sun graph streams in schematics. Set location, division, location, calculation. All right. Fun. So I'm going to set up point line settings and set locations to all levels of your sun lines. Get you ready in position locations into 1, 2, 3, 4. Trial locations. All right. Have fun. 4 central line settings. All right. You have to send all position location north, south, and east. Heat signature patterns, set line position location, direct line settings. Okay. Calculation streamlines. That's 82 line position. Equal conditions of 90. 90 sets line conditions to all levels, which is 110 set, and 110 equal conditions, all line center location of 4, 4 line centers, 114 position location, 0 gravity setting. All right, so setting calculation setting. As you guys are doing that position location direct line setting, then we're going to go through 82. Okay, so 82 line setting. So what is 80? It's infinity, right? So when you get into the infinity, I want to make it very well clear what 8 means to your line setting. So it's always going to be infinity. That's never going to change. What's going to change is the number. The central communication line center rotation, the avatar has to understand the foundations. Equal line conditions, all levels of 0 to 12 location. Okay, 82 equals 0 of 12, right? Once you stand the 0 gravity line center rotation sets off position locations to all levels into your XT1000 line. Okay, setting communication line setting and rotation interference sets to a track line center, all calculation, crop circle, calculation, streamline setting locations. 3 triangulation setting. Communication. Setting communication line center high interference. So 82 line center rotations is infinity. Okay, we already know that line rotations. Now 2 is security, right? But this is where it comes into security of infusion. It's a little bit more complicated. So 82 is infinity of an infusion system. Okay, infinity of an infusion system. All right, that's 82. 82 line centers. Infinity, okay, equals infusion. Your infusing line centers, the triangulation line rotation interference across our locations of 0 gravity and this location of 12. Setting calculation high center, higher rotation, this location direct line settings, high system location calculation streamlines. Okay, so come to 82. All right, 82 line conditions infinity equals infusion. All right. Okay, so we have calculation at line setting. Now 83. Now it's all you're doing is you're adding numbers. So you keep the foundations, graph lines, say 12 line rotation interference, right? This is your 12. Always have that on the sideline. All right, so set communications in triangulation line centers into 6, and position location of 7, line position of 8, and 9 is set line position location is trial line centers of 12 calculation setting. Always have that location is side graph settings. All right, size graph line center, high interference, position location, high line connection, is line direction location, longitude, and latitude line center rotation, center calculation, high center interference, and position locations into its ground setting, in a rotation setting. Okay, so all information is given to you on a basic note. And that note is recognizing your times of communication settings. All right. So 82 is line center. I'll make that very well clear in position locations. All right. Infinity, line position equal location of fusion. All right. 83 line settings is also calculations, sacral calculations, sacral communication setting, helix, double helix line locations, set line connection line directions. So you just got to learn how to balance these things out. So 3 line center locations, 80 position location, infinity, right, is line connections into double helix, infinity and double helix. Okay, double helix, right? 84 line center rotations is solar generation light stream, right? Sets communications all levels into what? Paradigm. 84 line centers. So it's infinity. Okay, your connections to solar into paradigm. Okay, paradigm. Okay. 85 line setting, high line rotation interference and calculation setting. Now that's time sector. All right. So that's infinity of time sector. Infinity equals time sector. All right. Calculation streamline. 86 line dislocation is your throw pattern line center locations. Electrical line setting. So it's electrical box surface. So it's infinity of electrical box surface. Infinity equals electrical. Okay, box. You got to put the box, and then you got to put slash surface. Okay. Change the energy line center locations in position of 4 line settings and box line connection line setting. All right. 87 line rotations is your position locations to your theta setting, right? So this is where it comes into our calculation center rotations. You come into all line rotations, right? The center communication line center sets communication infinity, right? So you can line conditions. This is really easy, 82 to 90. So it's infinity, set line position locations into all levels of theta. Okay. Okay, theta, okay, of triangulation. Theta of triangulation, all right? So that's where it comes into all communications into round line settings and triangulation line setting, all right? So get in the business locations. You can screenshot that, setting signals. All right. Getting communication line centers of 88, rotation, spin, cycle, high center, high interference, 88 position locations, 88 equals infinity, okay? Infinity, okay, equal conditions of karma, okay? Infinity of karma, ooh, rotation, spin, cycle. 89 is set locations into high center locations into what? Solar star calculation, ground line centers into energy wash, rainbow wash communication setting, right? So 9 is the location to hard line setting. So out of track line connections, you're coming into infinity and you're coming to higher levels of electrical line setting, high in line rotation interference, okay? So it's infinity in calculations 2 set locations into water interference, water interference. Okay, interference, water interference. Okay, so you're coming into higher communication, and position location 90 is set line communications to position locations of pi. Okay, pi equal conditions of 0 operation setting, pi of operation setting. Okay, operation setting. All right. Okay, so there it is, 82 to 90. All right. Now, that's all set up position line direct line settings. Obviously, you're going to have to watch this video again. Setting communications, set locations, high center rotations. So this is how you're going to set locations. Now, the sun is in day 2. The set your communication line centers, time, frequency, timeline, setting, high interference line specification directions. So we come into pi calculation, right? Pi calculation, pi calculations, pi calculations, setting communications, all levels. So let's get into a 4-track setting, right? There's pi, right? So you got 82 line center rotation, infinity line rotation is security line sets. All right, sets communication to center line communications, into center line rotations into all levels, into 8 position line direct locations, setting communication cycles and set line position, center calculations in all level system, infinity cycle, set location triangulation. All right, so there's a lot of things you can do with your sequence pattern communication systems through pi. Pi central line connection is one big signal activation streamlines. So you got space line, and you got timeline, and you got split location, right? So it's all about understanding how to set pi's of communication. Your sun lines comes into communication, comes into communications, right? Setting calculations of 2 panels of activation streamlines, okay? Setting calculation streamlines into dimensional round line in the Fibonacci swirl calculation. Setting communication to travels in a 45-degree angle calculation, 45% line calculation streamline, right? So changing line settings is a sector location of timelines all through space, location of time, setting line location triangulations and 3 line settings. All levels, set location laser direct locations, XD1000 comes in, set line signals in high rotation, right? Comes in calculations all levels, scans the center calculations all line position locations to high information line streams, okay? So it's complicated what the sun is because it has line communication. So this is where you come into alpha. Okay, alpha locations, you come into delta, you come into theta, you come into all calculation settings. All right, once you get into alpha, delta, theta, then you come into beta, and then you come into omega. Omega is always the center operation. Sets calculation travels through its dimension, to its atom, to its theta calculation setting, to its balance calculation strain. Flux capacitor communication setting, rotation cycles, center calculation streamlines in rotation setting, and position location calculation. Right? Setting sonar and set lines at 3 line positions, 3 line positions, 3 line positions, 3 line position locations, all different calculation settings. All right. Center calculation center locations comes into all position location to its pyramid setting. Setting calculation lines comes into its Merkaba setting. Comes in calculations all levels into its tetrahedron line rotation and position location calculation setting. It's all calculated modify how you set locations in a circle line rotation setting. Setting communication system, another travel line position location, all line center 12 DNA setting. See how it sets locations, all levels calculation of sonar. So you really have to understand how this is all set up. Things that are set up for you to understand your sun, how to use it through correlation is all levels of U through triangulation, how to use the pi of all calculation settings, right? So you know the exact lines now from 82 to 90. Again, the position location muscle memory is extremely important. Once we get into line rotation interference in position locations, we have all calculations coming into high center locations, 7J track locations of body waters of the sun, all right? Getting in position location of 5 atmospheres of the sun line setting, coming in ether line setting, rotation cycles, surface line position locations, track line centers. But it's amazing how you set locations into 4 generalized high center interference calculations, alpha, delta, theta, vega, and omega. And set line communication comes into higher calculations into gamma settings and high force line setting. All right, different wave central communication setting, right? Everything is a graph. Everything has to be a graph, right? Everything is a graph. It's recognition lines and locations, high setting, rotations, right? See how it equalizes rotation setting of balance? That's balance, isn't it? All of the balance. See? There's a central communication offline. It's 2 together rotations, right? Setting calculation. So you get a double helix set location right here. See the double helix? All right, so what you have to do is you split line center, scaled line rotation interference, bring it back in calculation streamlines, puts back in locations, so you do it again. Setting communications, and rotation setting. All right, back in line setting, back in division line rotations. There's an off signal right here, right? So it's got a low frequency pattern, right? So that's a beta wave calculation. It's a beta calculation line center, division location, high setting, right? So it's all about you understanding how to interline these calculations as graph strings, guys. And it's all calculated and modified through all line position locations into zeros, set locations, 4 line channels, equal line conditions of 4, right? You get 5 0 line position locations, is set location equals 5. Inline center rotation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, and 6 equals 6 locations, right? So anything above line 7, you have to bracket its 3 line setting because now it's an area code. Area code of 3 line settings in high line rotation to its position location to a 7-digit number rotation. Okay? So you understand how you change 7 line setting locations, high center interference. Remember, we plotted 2 division locations from 3 and 4 through a number, but we did it through triangulation of a 4 box line connections. So 34 is now a box 16 line connections in the 3 line triangle. Set communication, set rotations, high center interference. You guys are just in your number locations. Once we get into 114, everything will start to balance communication to your moons and your sun location settings. All right, so now how you turn line connections of 0 zeros into 7 line settings, or 4, 3, 2, 1, right? So track line center rotation is 0 gravity, setting communication line center location of ground settings, in set locations all of security position, setting communication line center in all calculations to its position locations, all levels of the Fibonacci sequence, setting communication line center line connection to the solar panel communication setting, high center interference locations, comes into all location, time, frequency, line center locations, box line rotations, invisible location, calculation of heart setting, 6 position location of throat setting locations, setting calculation of brain box, line center rotation interference, of 7 calculation settings, opens all position location direction. Ooh, so this is calculation of 0 and position location of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ooh, hieroglyphics, numbers. Hieroglyphics, hydroglyphics. Setting calculation streamlines. So you get 7 line centers of alpha, 6 position locations of delta, 5 position locations of beta, 4 position locations of omega, 3 calculations into delta, 2 position locations into alpha, 1 position locations into high center location of theta, and 0 line position locations into alpha. Hoo-ah through travel line connection. Booyah. So, why is it so important to understand the position line directions and what you're doing through travel locations, guys? You have to understand the recognize and timelines of sector. Sector calculations of clock line centers, it's calculation over line position over pi. Pi position location of direct line setting. It sets signals in all calculation streamlines. All right, recognize high center interference, screenshot that. So, waves, numbers, hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics, numbers, waves. You understand? That's how it works. Getting to calculation set line centers, now you guys have to come into gamma. Gamma is very complicated because you're connecting radiation line settings. So using line rotations comes into box center, but position location direct line centers. So you go to sun communication, right? Equal line connections, all line center rotations into its level. Level communications into alpha line center location, equal line connections of delta, delta communication line center to XT1000 line position location and track line setting and ground setting. Right? So the recognition line center is its position location of O, sets line position operation, travel locations, right? Line setter line position location of levels and triangulation of 3. So it sets location of 6, 7 location of 8, 9 line setting, 12 line position location calculations, 12 central line position locations, equal line connections of its atom. Atom sets line position locations into 12. 12 central lines its position location, equal line center of delta wave. Delta calculations goes into the center operation line, zip zap zoom calculations set locations of XT1000. All right. So this is where you come into all calculations to hydroglyphic settings, hydroponic line rotations, plants, coils, recessed lines, ground lines, soil, set locations, high center, plants, allocate timelines, time stream, high interference, electrical line settings, the hydraulic line center rotations, rotation cycles, high ground lines, size graph interference, seismograph settings, size graph line rotation setting rotations, tunnel defense line triangles, set position location calculations, streams, setting operation set locations into ground interference, all calculation high setting, right? So what you have to understand is that you're coming into the sun. So it's important to understand the waves, the numbers, and the hieroglyphic locations of hydroglyphics, okay? So it's all calculated to modify how you calculate and modify, right? So in sun communications comes in line center location of helium. Helium connections into atomic line center to flux capacity set locations, 3 line positions, 6, 7 location of 8, 8 position location of 9. Center communications, set line conditions of pi, position location of 7, line position of 6 in pi calculations, 9 in set locations at ground setting. All right. So rotation spin cycle sets locations of its division locations, set lines. Time sector over line position over pi calculates over line setting rotation set locations into its position direction. All right. So setting signals, sending and receiving codes of sun and line comms. Yeah. So now I get a better understanding how to use the connections to the waves, the numbers, and the hieroglyphic locations. This is what comes into hydroglyphics. You understand the line setting and how it sets line position location in the galaxy set. Let's say get a rotation spin cycle, right? Set locations. Setting location right there. There's a spin cycle line setting. Okay. The spin cycle line set rotation is going through, let's say 1.5 position locations into million lines, position locations per track line center per second, right? That's 150 million line settings or 15 million line settings or 150 billion line settings at all levels across cluster line position of a track line setting and rotations to a black hole and center calculation. All right. Setting communication line setting is position locations. So each wire is a recognized line setting. So it's position location at alpha, set locations into 15 equal line connections. Where is it? Merkabah position location at track setting, high interference of tetrahedron location calculation streamlines, and set division, all through equation. All right. Releasing set lines is to understand how to travel line rotation, position location, calculations, all levels of H2O, right? H2O locations, water containment setting. That's where you get communication setting, rotation, and new foundation graph lines. It all position locations, calculation streamlines. But it's very powerful when you come into 150 million, 150 billion line position locations into cloud line center, cloud channel interference, cluster line interference locations, black cloud center locations, black hole communication line centers, and high interference dimensional inter-black line center inter rotation positions of an atom line rotations, 15 line triangles, set location of tesseract high interference, visit good tetrahedron. All through equation. So all right, so it's very complicated. The sun, right? Okay, let's see. Sam calculation, Geneva, Joanne, line conditions, Andy position of level set locations into Guardian line center, David's locations, all some Max. Hey, Max, how you doing? It's good to see you back. So locations, high center, CC MacGyver, what's up? Airbetter calculations, Jill's on board, set locations, pre-flight, Gypsy, Andy, Anita, Yolanda. All right, Linda. Organic communication setting. Let's get into Ross calculations. Let's get into Heather calculation setting. All right, set locations. The Cami calculations rate all levels. Let's get in position locations and direct location settings into all level calculation. Zira is here through navigation setting. All right. So there's a lot going on right now, guys. All through the metric system. All right, Royale with cheese. The metric system, guys. That's where we're coming in line setting. That's why I wanted you guys watch the position locations of Moneyball and the position line center locations of Inception. There's a reason why you understand these line settings, all locations, set locations. So it's our locations. We start with 34 line setting. So how do we turn 34 into set locations and pi of 3 line positions into triangulation? How do we do that, right? Set locations, triangulation, box position, right? So we got 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3, right? And then we count 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Setting communication of 3 and 4. Set calculation setting. Measure calculation of balance, right? So that's how 34 turns into a shape through triangulation of 3 and position location of box center of 4. 34. Setting calculation, circle line setting, all right? So now you guys are understanding more why it's so important how to use the waves through your central line connections of your digital line location of your numbers at 12 foundation graph streams of location of your DNAs to your position locations of its hieroglyphic locations and the hydro line settings. Okay, hydrospheric calculations, streamlines, allocate timelines, atmosphere line position location calculations. You can travel through graph streams and set lines, right? But this is all position location of what? You understand the wave and set line position. What is the wave central set at? What is the wave central set at? There's 7 graph streams of your waves that are in set location of your brainwave pattern. You start with 7. 7 equal line condition location is line centered to what? 5. 5 position locations, all levels. So calculation line condition is 12, right? That's the foundation locations into your process calculation line setting into your DNA process of communication, right? So once you understand the 7 graphs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're dealing with this every single day. Every single day. So this all depends locations from this. Changes position. Oh, what's going on? Oh, that's not good. Oh, wow, that's really not good. Oh, you're crossing signals on line center rotation. Not good through brainwaving pattern. Electrical light defense line position location at time factor, time calculations, time sector. Line setting line rotation is one graph stream, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 7 locations. So you got to balance these things out all through calculation to the sun line setting. Sun sets up all communication settings into time sectors. So once you understand your graph streamline settings, you get a better emotional track location to your moon setting rotations. But this is all number sequence line setting, guys. How you set location of solar panels, solar calculation stream settings, allocate timelines, time streams, time calculation over pi, under sector of pi calculation line settings, calculation over line setting, rotation spin cycles, galaxy surface, galaxy line rotation, interference line rotations, foundation graph streams, allocate timelines and set locations, all through video graph stream lines, a 7-line condition. That's just 7. You're dealing with 114 vibrational graph lines? Come on, guys. You see how you have to balance these things out through personality line rotation calculation streamlines? Too many low division line rotations. And these are just 4-line settings. 4. Center communication line centers is where's the 3-line position locations. The other wires are offline center rotations going this way. Set location. Off center line setting. Sun is way off communication. Moon is way down in line setting. In position locations has to come back in triangulation and position line centers and 3 sector calculation. Okay. That's why you have to know exactly where your sun and your moon is in all position line directions, right? So I think it's fantastic when you really get more lines of what you're doing through your Schumann resonance, right? The sun has that and so does the moon, but it's all levels of graph line setting, okay? Your sector calculation streamlines is true to send all position location of direct line settings. So you guys are in your alpha, you're in your delta, you're in your theta, you're in your beta, you're in your omega in calculation setting, right? So the alpha line center comes into position of an atom. Delta communication line center comes into its molecule. Second communication of theta comes into its TV box line. Operations center locations is the omega communication center operation. Beta calculations into a low graph streamline center rotation system. Position location directions. Setting calculation high interference. Gamma sets line position locations, all line center rotations into all triangulation, into all position locations, in high center, high rotation graph lines, in all position locations to its sun rotation. Ooh, ah. So, very powerful what the sun is doing through the central wave calculations of you. You have to scan the scan lines, your body scans, your bioscans, and your ultra set locations in its division location calculation streamlines. So, all right. Okay, let's go surfing now. Everybody's learning how. Come on, surf safari with me. Come on, everybody. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Let's see where we are through track site locations of time sector. Connect 89, infinity water containment, into grounds, data box, imagination, highline connections. Yeah, tomorrow we get into the pi from 82 to 90, how to put it in sequence location of coloration of time through its sector line setting. In set locations, you have to really understand the size graph lines in your schematic locations, right? This is all volume and calculations of E equals MC squared. We have another test coming up that line setting. First, we come into the sun communications, all right? But it's amazing how you set location to the way to set your line settings, all right? The center communication line center is sun and rotation. Sun communication system, you split it in half line setting, right? Sun and calculation high setting. Here's the moon line rotation. Moon is always on standby. Moon is always in position location in direct line setting into flux capacitor, position location over its umbrella. Setting calculates streamline. The sun is a rotation spin cycle and high setting and rotations. Coming in a correlation line setting, high rotation set location to its atom line setting. Sun communication sets its rotation setting in a rotation cycle in seconds and set locations in minutes, and its positions of its hours and its date line setting. Okay. Alpha Bravo channel stream fast. Zip that to him. So, yeah, that's okay, Madeline. Whatever you watch, you can watch back. I'm just trying to get everybody ready to get into their alpha settings, into their digital line settings, into the Hieroglyphics of their set locations, right? So we still have to get into symbols and shapes and letters all through the sunlight. We'll be doing that tomorrow. Location setting locations. The graph line center has to understand the 12 foundation of U through calculations, how to travel through 3 line positions of pi, right? Set communications comes into all line center locations of your north, east, west, and south. Okay, center calculation of a clock line center has to understand locations of its 12, 24, 48, and 72, and 144 sets and location setting in direct locations, right? 144 comes out line rotations of 3, 3, 3, 0 line condition of area code equal location of 7. There it is, set locations, right? Clocking setting, high line rotation interference is understand the 12 line setting rotations of a new ground setting into a new power recognition line setting into a magnetic high wave emission set of locations, all levels of calculation streams. It's all set locations. So your 12, your 24, your 48, and your 72, and your 144 is now set in the sun location. It's all set up. All right, so in that line setting high rotations calculation streamlines, so getting into higher rotations to its gamma setting locations, get you guys into more communication cycles, into area code settings, into business location, equal line centers locations, 7-digit frame settings. Modification cycles, set lines and high interference. But you understand position location of the grounds, the power recognition line settings, the magnetic high information line rotation of its cloud setting, come into all communication setting, right? So you got the Earth, you got position of the angelics, and you got position location of space. All right, all set location of your sun lines in your north, west, south, and east, your dynamic core line center in position locations. What's left in signal is your calculations to your modification setting to all lines of your tetrahedron line setting. All right, it's all set up. Merkaba position line direct locations in position, right? So we have to understand the wave center line connections, your radiograph line settings, because the sun rotates on so many seconds per minute, per hour, per channel, per operations, per square. The calculation line center location is the size graph line setting. This is schematic line rotation of longitude and latitude. That's where I was trying to understand line rotation, position location, direct locations when it's coming to the ratios, proportions, and it's the ratios of calculations to its proportions. You're purporting position line directions and teleporting line setting. So what you're doing is you're elevating line rotations into the sun communications to all levels to your track lines of electrical line connection. This opens all position locations to your digital pad, your computer line rotations, or anything high set location you pick up through division locations. Every time you pick these things up, you're automatically connected to the sun and the moon through flex capacitor. Right away in business line directions. Where they see you through pi is your determination line stream. It sets the calculation all level system line settings. So this communication line center comes into all to the galaxy setting, interdimensional lines, intergalactic locations, comes into megaverse calculations, multi-layers of communication layers, of high center and invariance, of business location, higher program locations. So really understand more lines of your center calculations of your waves, your digital line numbers, and your hieroglyphics calculation. All right. Get in and point calculation streamlines. We get into all calculations to your pyramids, getting your position locations to your film strips, all calculations. Once we get your sun lines and position of your moon line operation streams, we come into film projection locations, into its revelation. So, yeah, it's really exciting to set lines. Knowing exactly what it is to calculation set line connections, guys, it's really it's kind of like in a formation line stream. Formation line stream is all position location of box setting, right? So that's locations of 0, 0, 0, 4 line setting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So you got 4 line division and a 3 line sector. Okay. 4 line division across and 3 line sector down. Setting communications to a half pipe calculation setting, right? So this is modifications. This is all levels of your sun. This is your sun. Sun communication line centers understands the 4 line positions. Let's change the 4 line position locations. Let's add a couple of more zeros. Zeros are traveling to set locations into 3 line settings. Now travels position location and graph lines into high interference of holographs of structure location of stream settings. It opens all communication to a higher communication setting into all levels of its structure of its position. All right. So you have to get into confirmation of what you're doing through all levels of zeros and ones. If you're going to 0-1 line setting, that's 0 dot position locations, or you get position location dot setting line conditions, travel line center rotation interference, travel line center rotation interference, travel line rotation and interference. All right, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 set line conditions into heart vectors of timelines into 6. 6 position location of throat, set location into 7. 7 location of 8 infinity cycle set location. So it's sure you understand how to set lines in all level calculation streamlines, which is extremely complicated stuff because now we're calculating to the sun. Sun is all position line center. So in that line position location is truly understand how to use it through your foundational locations of your 12 DNA. That's correlation. Okay. Get any position locations and where it's supposed to go. Decimal here, 0, 1 or 0, 0, 1. And then you come into calculations here, line positions of 1. You get in decimal into 0, 0, 1. And calculation set locations, you come into 0, 0, 0, your bracketed locations of boxes locations, equal line conditions of factor, equal line conditions over position locations of pi. Complicated, right? So that's one line setting, decimal point line center rotations, 0 gravity interference, set locations, equal line conditions of a triangle, set line position of 6, 7 locations of 8, and 9 line setting, diamond core line rotation interference. Sun changes its position location of directions to pi interference of calculations into 36,000 line settings in rotation set position locations back and ground setting to 0 gravity location. Ooh, all done through the equation. So why is it so important to understand the calculations of pi through the sun? Because it positions your direct locations to your wave sector line settings, your videograph line setting locations. So every time you're looking at the sun, you're looking at the pi of you, right? Because everything is in a correlation of a shape. Everything is correlated to a number. Everything is correlated to a symbol. Everything is correlated to all levels of calculations to its position locations of its number. The track line center location is the hieroglyphic location setting. The hydroglyphic line center location gets into pyramidal streamlines. That's where you come into your elixirs, assuming your cosmic flame, cosmic fire, serpent flame, and serpent fire set locations. 3 line settings, high line and rotation interference, a pyramidal streamline sets, all communication setting. Where do you think the sun comes from? Modification to your AI position of vessel calculations, cell levels, light stream, high interference. Where do you think your solar generation light setting is at locations? What's the program locations, set line positions? Let's say you get a solar generation light stream and position location solar graph. Solar graph location, there's Saturn, set locations. There's Mercury, set locations. And there's Pluto, the set location of security line setting. So that's 2 line set locations into security. All right? Setting communication line settings, cross line conditions on planetary surface. Solar graph line centers, the Saturn communication line rotation sets a new position location and directions. Setting communication line center, sun is a rotation center location, right? Sun has to get in triangulation at 3 line settings, has to get into 6 line position, and has to get in positions to its line of its parallels of 0 gravity into set locations into 2 lines into systematic line condition. Travel position location recognition of time, times sector, times calculations, times pi. All right? So it's important to understand how to set line position locations. This is where you come into size graph line settings. It's all about our schematics to your sun graph of its stream setting. Okay? So fast tracking line setting, rotation set locations. So the sun sets locations. We'll get another graph line stream. What's set locations? All right. So you got 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. All right. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anything over 6 line position locations, you have the bracket setting. Setting communication equal line conditions. That's positive over an egg line center to 7. So that comes into 7 zeros in calculation into 1 graph stream, sets communication as sun line into triangulation in direct location to travel setting. That opens all communication lines centered into graph lines centered to water containment system location, throat patterns of 6 line position location of 7, 7 to a theta box, set line conditions of infinity cycle, setting communication of energy wash setting in rotation to its galactic family of its ether line rotation, 11 into solar system locations and 3 line settings of 0 line positions, back and track interference in 12 line setting and overlooking location of high center rotations and calculation all line and rotation high center interference of your Earth calculation. All right, so we're at 49 settings. I'm going to take you guys out. You guys are out. See that? Solar graph line center. That was 2 million track line centers per second per channel per operator per square through the sun. Solar graph streams, 1 line setting, 0 line settings, 1 million zeros track and set locations into ground lines of security position locations and zero gravity line setting, done through a equation. All right. So setting communication line center rotation and interference line position location directions, all levels of sun communication setting. Okay, close your windows and position locations, go through your pre-flights again and outline setting locations. You don't want to be lost in transition locations or anything with the fuel. Setting communication line settings, put position locations back in your hangars, set communication in the system, walk out line centers, back in configurations to your quadrants. Setting communication line centers, because you guys are now in time sector of pi through the sun. Okay? Setting line signals is all rotations. Yeah, that's okay. It's a 2 bracket line center rotations and 2 Fibonacci swirls, and 1 way this way, 1 way that line center, going the opposite line center, electrical line conditions. What is this? Location of flux capacitor locations and bar line center of 6. Set position location of 7, set line 8, line center locations. Setting swirls that communicate solar generation light streams, set line position location into 7 line position of theta bar calculation, the TV reception line calculation stream. All right. So it's important you understand how to use these line signals, guys, because it's all connected to your alphas, deltas, thetas, betas, omegas, and communication line centers of gamma and its radiation line setting. Tomorrow, communication system, we come into infusion to the location to the sun line setting. All position location calculation high stream. So it's amazing when we come into all position line directions. Really understand your 12 foundations. I'm showing you in so many ways and forms why you can be foundations of everything, but you have to understand your DNA line settings, guys. That's why it's important to understand the zero gravity. That's why it's important to understand position location of grounds. That's why it's important to understand all position locations of security line setting. That's why it's very important to understand all position locations to your soccer calculation setting. That's why it's so important to understand all position of your solar graph line setting. That's why it's so important to understand everything through your time sector line conditions of your heart setting. That's why it's so important to understand your throw patterns in set locations. That's why it's so important to understand the 7 line position location of TV box line center, TV reception communication system location, sun communication, the moon setting. Understand? Graph streamline center rotation interference. So, yes, the sun makes you emotional in so many line setting rotation interference. I just showed you the solar graph streams and 2 million triangles locations and the 0 line 1 communication settings. The solar graph stream line center location is solar panels. It's always in position location of 4. It's never going to leave your setting. Your 12 DNA is always in your position line settings, but you have to understand the registration path. That's a correlation line connection where it comes into the visual location to your sectors of your time settings. Okay. You really, really have to pay attention to your 7 line settings. Okay. Now you can use your 7 line settings. This will get a little more complicated. So let's location 0 gravity location. Equal line condition 0. Line is the location of gravity. Set locations into zone settings, right? Time zone line setting, right? The time zones, ground lines, levels, communication lines, center locations of its Earth setting rotations, all right? Setting calculations, Earth tone line center location. Let's go into Pluto calculation setting, all right? Pluto's linear rotation line interference and position of Jupiter. Jupiter's in 2 sector communication and 3 line settings. So that's 2 line settings into 3 communication cycles and set locations. 2 line equals line condition of 3, back in communication to all levels. Let's put position location of Saturn. Saturn comes into high line centers. Sun is in communication, in triangulation, and point setting. The sun always has to come in triangulation. Always, 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 all right? So it doesn't matter where you set up the position line directions. You have to understand all line centers of what you're doing through 0 gravity to ground line centers to all communication system, all levels of zones, okay? Ground zones, ozone layers, okay? So there's a lot you need to understand position locations. And obviously you guys have a lot of questions, right? So we have a calculation streamlines. Next Monday is the test on the sun. All right. All right. So there's a lot going on, isn't there? It's exciting, isn't it? I'll give you another line graph streamline setting. Okay. So setting communication line center rotation interference. Very simple to understand locations. We understand balance 0 equals 12 line setting. Here's the sun communication and triangulation. Done. That's it. It's easy, right? So simple. Ground setting right away. 0 gravity set locations into a graph. Right? Set locations, right? Set communication and grounds and graph. Set communications. So you got the alpha line setting. Alpha's always in the ozone layer. Setting communication and ultraline settings sets locations into 3 panels of calculation streams. So you set locations into point view. Point view is location of 3, and set locations at 12, equal function of 6. 6 position location in the center. Center line 6 equal location of 7. 7 position locations over lines 5. 5 position of timelines, time sectors, in Fibonacci swirl, and position location of double helix. Setting communication of atom line center, and position location of triangulation into a tetrahedron. Position location octahedron line center rotation calculation. So it's so amazing. You come into the sun, the operation of the sun is everything through all calculations. That's how it sees you in your position locations to your body's vibrational settings. All right. So many questions, eh? We got Q&A coming up. You're just like, mind blown. So it's incredible how you guys did through central communication line settings. All right. So I'll see you guys in Zoom. Adios.